Welcome, everybody, to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here with Nikki Kinzer on this fine, weirdly sunny January day.
You have sun? I don't.
It is sunny.
Is it?
It's a crazy awesome day.
Well, you're definitely not in New York City, and you're not in Eugene, Oregon.
Snowmageddon.
No kidding.
Wow.
They're getting hit back there.
Did you see, another colleague of mine on another show told me last night that apparently Arizona had an error that made national news on their weathercast because the guy started, there was just a glitch in the computer system, and all of the numbers on the map that tell you the temperatures in the region, they added an extra zero. And he just kept talking about it. He just said, okay, and so in Phoenix today it was 750 degrees, and then he didn't even catch it? He didn't even catch it, no, until he just got through the whole thing. I thought that was very funny. Okay, so we are talking the show today. I am very excited about the show today. I read your notes, and I was blown away by the coincidence. Yes, totally. We're going to be talking about getting unstuck. It is such a powerful concept that can really affects our lives if we let it get the better of us. But before we do that, make sure you head over to Take Control ADHD to learn a little bit more about the show, to subscribe for free on iTunes so that you never miss an episode. And most important, we want to hear from you. So if you have any questions or comments that arise from listening to today's show, please join us on Twitter at Take Control ADHD or on Facebook.com/Take Control ADHD and share your stories about being stuck and what it means for you to get out of it. So, Nikki, please tell me the story that inspired you to have this conversation today.
Well, first of all, I have to say I'm glad that you see it as being a coincidence for you as well, because that's what I have to pay attention to. And that's where I started paying attention to this, because I was feeling this way. And then a client last week was telling me about how she was feeling this way. And so I know I can share with you, my experience was just sort of, I could just tell that I was fighting that urge of, poor me, right? All of these things were kind of going disarray, and why does it have to be so hard? And that was sort of what I kept thinking in my mind when I was dealing with some of these different issues in my own life is, why does everything have to be so hard? And lack of motivation and just low energy, all of that icky kind of ugly stuff that kind of rears its head when you feel stuck. And my client had a similar situation where she comes to the call and, everything is going wrong. Everything's taking longer than she's expecting. And there's so many steps and, it always happens to her, and just really kind of beating herself up and asking me, how do I get out of this funk? How do I get out of this? And so, I don't know, what was your story? I mean, why is this a coincidence to you?
Well, I've been trying for working alone for so long on trying to bring all of the various podcasts that I do together under this network umbrella, this just sort of concept of bringing all these shows together. And working alone on it can be really difficult. There's a lot of work, a lot of technical work, hundreds and hundreds of episodes and lots of questions, technical questions and practical questions and advertising questions. These are big issues. And I found myself just getting in such a slump over it, thinking it's impossible. This is just not going to take hold. It's just not going to happen. And it was getting me down, thinking, maybe this is just something. And this is the part that I realized I'm really stuck when you say to yourself, maybe it's just not meant to be.
Right.
That is such dangerous language. And I typically really resonate with when I hear that, it's like, oh man, something is wrong. Yeah.
You have to pay attention to that. Yeah. For sure. Mm-hmm.
So what happened for you?
Well, there was what actually happened. You want to get to the meat of what?
Well, I guess what happened, or how did you realize that this was that you were getting into that spiral?
I think it's a combination of things. I think that one thing that I actually have not shared very much, I don't think I've shared at all with our audience, is that my husband has MS. He has multiple sclerosis, and this is a chronic illness, and it has its moments where it kind of rears its ugly head and flares up. And in the last month, my husband has gone through a pretty bad episode. And so when that happens, it obviously affects him drastically, but it affects our whole family. And it affects me because a lot of things have to change. And so while he's resting and trying to beat it and get past it. And so it was this combination of dealing with this chronic illness and trying to stay positive for him, and not honestly feel sorry for myself, because I'm not the one. He's dealing with the pain and dealing with the illness. And, there was a moment where it's like, well, I can't feel sorry for myself just because I have to, take out the trash and he doesn't this week, or, it's like, I've got to fight that urge of not making things feel like it's against me or that it's so hard. And that's where I was going. I was like, God, this is so hard. Why does it have to be so hard? And that's what I was really fighting. And then, we had, this great success with my son with his school, but then we had some other things happen with his basketball team and dealing with that and just like, oh gosh, why does this have to be so hard? I mean, that was the question that kept coming in my mind. And that's really what I was like fighting against, is like, okay, I have to be an example here to my children, to my, I need to take care of my family. And that's really honestly where all of this came from, is this feeling of just, oh, get out of this, how do I get out of it?
Yeah. Oh, well, now, your story is much, much heavier than mine.
Well, it's not meant to be.
Yeah,
and I don't bring it up because, it's not meant to be. But you asked, and, I'm
glad you shared. And I absolutely appreciate it, because I don't think, I think it's important to recognize just the level of impact that, your husband's, that what he deals with, impacts what you deal with, and how that affects your life and your work and every other aspect of the operation of your family. Like that, it has ripples. And when you let yourself kind of feel stuck, that has an impact.
It does. And I want to have a disclaimer here, because I think that it's important to distinguish the feeling stuck and being depressed. And this show is not about dealing with depression. If you feel like you're really in a dark place and you're depressed, and no matter what you've done to try to get out of it isn't working, then I really suggest that you go see your doctor. These strategies and the experience that I'm talking about is very different from that. I've been in a depression before. I've been in anxiety, circumstances that I needed to go get help. And that's not what this is about. So I just want to be clear on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So going back to this whole thing and what you're talking about too, it's just this feeling of powerlessness. Is that a word? Is powerlessness a word?
It is. You just have to commit. It'll be a word eventually.
Committing to that word. But sure feeling powerless, I guess, is probably a better way to phrase it. And like you said, how that affects, everything in your life. And for me, it was certainly a lack of motivation, energy, just trying to figure out what needed to be done and when it needed to be done. And so I had to figure out how to get out of this. This was just something that I could see was happening. I was paying attention to it. And then when my client asked me about it, I'm like, oh man, I got to figure this out. And really it came to me just stopping and reflecting on this one question. And that is really, what am I focusing on right now? And I was focusing on the negative. I was focusing on the problems. I mean, this goes back to when we were talking about problems versus possibilities. I was focusing on how bad it is, how much it sucks, how unfair it is, because it is unfair. And I know that, but it doesn't matter because the circumstances don't change. And so I have to figure out how to change my thinking. I need to shift what is going to serve me. And these negative feelings were not serving me at all. They were bringing me farther down in this rabbit hole that I did not want to be in. Right?
Absolutely.
So this little saying kind of came to my mind, and I've heard it over and over again. And, but for whatever reason, it stuck with me, and it's, this too shall pass. is what I kept thinking. And I thought, okay, it may feel awful right now, but it will pass. I will get through it. My family will get through it. My son's going to get through, the challenges he was facing. My husband has this incredible positive attitude and grace about himself when he deals with these issues with his illness. I knew he was going to get through it. And so then this next word sort of was like resilience, right? Came into mind. How am I going to be resilient? And how am I going to take this bad situation and get unstuck, right? Because it too will pass. I know it's going to pass. So these are the things that I did, and these are the things that I suggested to my client do. And I think that, like you said at the beginning of the call, I would love to know what other people do to get unstuck, because I think there's a variety of different ways to do it. I don't think there's one way or this is the right way or the wrong way. But the first thing I did is I was going into a situation that I knew was going to be stressful. And so on the way to that situation, I put on the most uplifting, inspiring music I could think of.
That's perfect. What is it?
Well, of course, I mentioned this before. It's Jason Mraz.
Okay. All right.
But I did. I put him on and I listened to his music, and it put me instantly in a good mood. The other song I love right now is Uptown Funk from by Bruno Mars. Love that song. Just makes me happy, and I want to dance when I hear it. So
That's
I put
so
on,
good.
yeah, I put on good music. I put on music that makes me happy. And what that did for me going into this situation is I was driving to this situation. And so what it did for me is it just sort of put things in perspective. Like, okay, this doesn't really matter. It is going to pass, and I'm going to get through it. And I'm just going to listen to this good, happy music and be in a good mood. And so at least when I'm going into the situation, I'm in a good mood. Mm-hmm. I leave the situation, I'm mad. But I put back on Jason Mraz on the way home, and it got me back out of that.
Let J Mraz pull you back.
It pulled me back into the moment and pulled me back to that doesn't matter, and this is what matters. So again, I mean, music for me, music does that for me, and it's not just his music, it's any music that you find that's uplifting. But for me, when you hear, an upbeat song or something that just makes you smile and dance, or it's a good memory, or something like that, it just takes you out of that funk a little bit. It takes you out of that ugliness. And that's what that did for me. The second thing I did is I decided I needed a little exercise, because we all know that exercise is such a good thing for us. So I decided to take my dog for a walk. And as I was doing that, I decided to listen to a podcast about motivation, because I thought, okay, I'm stuck. I need some motivation. What does this person have to say to me?
Sure.
And so I'm listening and I'm paying attention to what they're saying. But one thing that they said that really stuck with me, and that I want to share with our folks, is that motivation is not something that just comes to you. You actually have to find it. You have to pay attention to it. You have to create it, and you have to then act on it. And I thought, wow, huh? It doesn't just come to me. I don't know why it never dawned on me before that it's not. I don't know. I mean, what do you think when you hear that? For me,
wow.
It was.
Well, it is kind of a jarring statement. I guess it makes sense. Like you just sort of like there is it makes it an active thing. One of the things I really like about it is it puts the control back in your hands.
Yes,
right?
yes.
You're in control of your own motivation, and motivation, it seems, is an outcome to the things that you do to provide yourself the safe space to be motivated.
Right.
And when you stop acting on those things, right? When you stop putting yourself in a position, when you stop turning off the notifications of Facebook and stuff, when you stop, eliminating distractions, then what you're doing is letting go of control of your own motivation. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I really like that. I mean, I really like that message.
I did too. And it really, again, it just kind of stuck with me that it doesn't have to be all or nothing too. Because I guess I feel like either you're motivated or you're not motivated. And this just sort of like reminded me that it is in our power to find it, to go towards it, that it doesn't have to be something that goes away from us. And so that really stuck with me. I came home. Of course, I felt better because I had exercised and I got moving and the endorphins are going. And I paid attention to the beauty around me because that was one day that Eugene also had a beautiful sunny day in January. And so I paid attention to those things. And again, just sort of like centered myself back into what really mattered. And taking some of these situations that were very negative and putting them into the positive. And I've always done that in a way of gratitude, like okay, let's not focus on what's not going right. Let's focus on everything that is going right. And I think that certainly can make a difference. But really what it all comes down to is we have a choice. I really do believe we have a choice. Are we going to wallow in the ugliness? Are we going to stay there? Or are we going to do something different? Are we going to create that motivation that we need? And, my problems haven't gone away. My husband still has MS. He'll always have MS unless they find a cure someday, which God hope they do. But they're not holding me hostage. And that's how I felt before. I felt like I was being held hostage, and now I'm not. And that is huge for me. And I hope I hope that somebody that's listening out there, it rings something true for them too.
I do too. I think I just think it's so powerful to think about it. Like you said, when you're feeling stuck, to go listen to a podcast about, that helps you get motivated, right? What are the tools that you can take action on, that you can embrace in your life, that can help you move through it? For me, it's people. And what got me out of my recent funk was that I realized I had been working on this alone. And as soon as I, got over that sense of fear, like not wanting to talk to people outside of my head for fear that they'll judge or for fear that they'll, cast any sort of doubt on my action. As soon as I started talking about it, eventually I found the right people that not only thought it was a great idea, but want to help and want to be a part of it and want to help sort of grow something cool. And that is an enormously empowering bit of feedback. So seeking out that external sort of resonance, that external reflection that what you're doing is okay and where you are is okay, and it feels hard now, but it doesn't always have to be okay, or it doesn't always have to be hard. It's a really powerful experience for me too.
Well, and I think that's a key point. I think connections and other people, I think, are also important. And I it's interesting that I didn't have that in my own kind of strategy, but I can see, like, I think about that, and I think about when I'm down, I do reach out to the people that are the most positive in my life and who understand me and who I know aren't going to judge. And it is interesting how you sort of just, instantly find yourself calling them when you haven't talked to them for a while, or sending them a text that says, "Hey, how's it going?" And I'm sure that subconsciously is a big part of it.
Yeah,
is getting unstuck.
I think so. It's a really, well, it's just a wonderful kind of experience, and it feels so good when you actually get out of it. Right. When you realize you're taking control of your own motivation and feeling about it, Yeah, exactly. So one thing I want to talk about real quick, or just kind of let people know to be on the lookout for, is sort of in relationship to what we're talking about today. I am going to write a blog post in the next week or so about why I think it's important to know why something is so important to you before you tackle whatever change it is that you're looking for. So there's just going to be a few thoughts on why I think it's important to understand our motivation. And how that really does drive us in following through with long-lasting change, because it is certainly something that we need to continue going back to, because like we said, it is not just something that comes to us. No. And I'm going to write about that. Yeah. I've decided I wanted to write about that. I don't know why, but that's where my inspiration is coming into writing about that piece of it. So excellent. So be on the lookout for that. TakeControlADHD.com for Nikki's latest post, and that will be coming shortly.
Yes.
Any other news for the people?
No, I just wanted to comment real quick too about if you're interested in coaching, to just contact me via email. You can get a hold of me at Nikki@ADHD.com. If you have any questions.
TakeControlADHD.com.
What did I say? I said ADHD?
ADHD.com. That's not a thing.
That is not a thing. That you won't get a hold of me if you do it that way.
You just won't respond. It'll seem really rude.
It will be, yeah. Well, you'll probably get one of those bounce backs. It doesn't exist.
That's right.
Yeah. Email Nikki at takecontroladhd.com to set up an appointment. I know that sometimes people don't really know what the first step is, and that's what it is. You got to contact me, and we can chat.
I love it. I love that first step. Mm-hmm. You don't know what the first step is. You just got to reach out.
That's right.
Find your people.
Find your people.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We so appreciate your time and attention, downloading, subscribing to the show. If you have a few quick minutes and you're in iTunes, head over there and find the show in the iTunes podcast directory. Just search for it in the iTunes store and leave us a kind review. We sure appreciate those stars, and it absolutely helps other people to discover this show. So if you find anything that connects with you regarding this show, we sure appreciate you sharing it with others that you care about. Thanks so much, everybody. On behalf of Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright, and we'll catch you next week on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.